because it was like, for some reason, the way the Calendly came through, I like it came through like you didn't like add my calendar, so I had like manually add it, but like it went to like,
oh no,
this whole thing is it's no big deal. But like I had it on my Gmail account, then I forwarded it to my other main one. But then we had to change it, right? So then we changed it. So I just forgot that I was still on my calendar. So I had the new one, but I forgot the old one. And then your assistant emailed me, he's like, hey, you know it's next week. I'm like, yes, I know it's next week. I promise you I'm not a hot mess.
And thank you so much for being so flexible. That was seriously
totally.
so awesome of you.
It happens, so it's all good. I get it.
Okay, so I mean, we've kind of been stalking you a little bit, and it's really fun to see what you're doing. I mean, I'm really excited about what you're doing for people. So tell me, before we get started, just tell me, are there any things, because one of the things we love to do is we want to make sure we really highlight you and that people are like, who is this person? And they want to go find you. So what are some things that you would like to talk about? I mean, like the whole humility aside, really, what are the things that would help you the most, or that you feel like, wow, this is something that I really am proud of, or that I feel like I change people's lives in this way, so that I can make sure that we really cover that?
Yeah, I think, humility aside, I think because my business has been running full time for about 18 months, I feel fortunate and pretty humbled that, Salesforce, which is a big company, recognizing me a top person to follow, LinkedIn as well. But all those are basically a side effect of serving people, right? That's really it. Like just being able to serve my people, serve my audience, serve my clients, and to get recognition like that is kind of astounding to me. I'm like, wow, here I am. That wasn't a goal, but to be able to achieve that, I thought that was pretty in 18 months in business. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. And of course, the Forbes piece is cool. That stuff's cool too. But but for me, I'm like, Salesforce is like the creme de la creme for sales. In my world, like that's like, whoa, that's pretty impressive. So I feel, pretty excited about that, but that's definitely one thing we could talk about.
Okay, cool.
Uh-oh, that's okay. I can't hear you right now, just so you know. Yeah. No, I can't hear you. Yeah. There you go. Oh.
Okay, now can you?
Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Let me get this out of the way.
Totally.
So I totally spilled my water. I usually have a jug that does not have, that can't spill.
Oh yeah.
I have my glass right here.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, I have my coffee cup with the lid. It's just like it's a high risk zone. It's a high risk zone right in this area. Like there's too much tech. There's too much. There's too many papers. There's too much stuff that I need on the fly. I got you. Yeah.
I know. All right. Okay. So we will take care of that later. Let's make sure we can't hear my. Okay. Let's put the microphone where it's going to be good.
Cool.
All right. Okay. So I was just going to write that down, and then I distracted myself. So tell me what the Salesforce thing. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So Salesforce is like in the sales world is like it's like the most well-known software. It's probably one of the first really well-known SaaS products, which is software as a service. So anybody who is in the sales space, Silicon Valley is like, oh yeah. It's like if people work for Salesforce, like, wow, that's really impressive. If you're featured by Salesforce, really big deal, especially since they've never actually officially have published anything like this. So for them to put together a list saying, hey, it's kind of like if Forbes had never put together a list and said, hey, here are the top 16 people for business, people are like, whoa, that's amazing because people recognize that, right?
Okay.
This is really hyper targeted to sales. So it's like Salesforce to say that, it's like, whoa,
right.
That's a big deal. So people in sales get that.
Yeah. And so what exactly, what were your achievements in that area? Because I really want to focus on that.
Yeah, so I think for them, they look at it as a holistic view. So aside from obviously, you know, providing great content out there and making an impact, but truly like, do you actually know what you're talking about? Like, are you actually legitly helping people? Do you actually have a real legit business? Do you actually are you actually doing real things, right? So there's gray area to it as well, but to get recognized for the impact I've done in the 18 months, I find that pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to ask you questions that allow you to go into detail because I think there are going to be
Sure.
people out there who totally recognize that and are familiar with it, and there are
Yep.
going to be people who don't. So I'll make sure I set it up so that you're able
Totally.
to talk about that. Okay, good. And then, well, a couple of things I want to talk about. Of course, we'll talk about rule breakers, how you
Yeah.
were different than other people, how you didn't do things the way everyone else did them.
Mhm.
And we want to get to know you a little bit more, some
Sure.
of what
Perfect.
makes you tick and maybe some of the things like your greatest achievement in business
Mhm.
and what was that transformation for you as a person,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So we'll talk about some of
Mhm.
those.
Totally.
Okay, tell me what your
I'm totally
time.
game.
Okay, good. Tell me what your
Mhm.
time is like.
I got a hard stop in 50 minutes. So you're on mountain time. So what is that, 11 o'clock?
Yeah, 11 o'clock. Okay, we'll be done before that.
Cool. Perfect.
Okay,
All
awesome.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I am really excited today for you to hear from a really, really amazing man. His name is Marcus Chan. And we found out about Marcus Chan because of how he was serving his customers and the things that the results he was getting for his people. And you guys know that's what I like to bring you. I like to bring you hardcore stuff that allows you to implement things into your business where they can share some nuggets with us. But let me introduce Marcus a little bit and tell you why we kind of fell in love with him and wanted to bring him to you because he was actually born in Oregon, and I have a soft spot for Oregon because that's where I was born and I grew up there.
All right.
And so his parents are Chinese immigrants. I'm going to want to hear more about that because I lived in China for 2 years, and 我
Mm.
会说一点，可是我说的不好.
Hey, 还不
So
错.
a little bit. Good. Speak a little bit. Are you fluent?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at Chinese. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So I'm working on it. But he Marcus had dreams about building his future and things that he wanted to do for his future. And given the background that he grew up with, he has some siblings. I'll let you talk about that too. But everyone kind of had to pitch in to survive and to make it work and to, get what they needed for their family. And so he ended up getting to a place where he was able to put himself through college. He actually worked for some Fortune 500 companies, not just one. And so for the next decade or so, he was working on that career path. And when he started, he is a self-claimed worst rep in the entire company and had some limiting beliefs that he had to deal with. And with zero training, trying to figure this out, is 2007 recession, and he felt like quitting a lot of times. And that's one of the things I loved about you, Marcus, is that you were so open about that. And now you have created massive success. Like truly, you're in the top, higher than the top 5% of people in the world. Like literally, probably closer to 1%. And so I wanted to bring you here and let you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done. But the thing I like is that you've worked in corporate America. He broke sales records like you would not believe. He won awards and trips and trophies and things. He went out of control. So you obviously figured out how to make this work. And then you've turned it into creating your own business. And because of your success, now you talk about hustle, you talk about luck, but the reality is this doesn't happen on accident. It doesn't have there. You not only do it yourself, but it requires a lot of networking and bringing other people into JV partnerships or the people that you hire, the people that you end up working with. And you have to get really good at that in order to achieve what you've achieved. So, first of all, Marcus, I'm going to ask about some of your background with your family and where you came from. But first, people are going to want to know, what is your business? Tell us what you do and what you love the most about what you're able to give your customers.
Yeah, awesome. So first off, thank you so much for having me on. You give me a massive head over here it's getting, yeah, I won't be able to fit through my doors after this, but but thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm Marcus Shan. So I have a company called Venly Consulting Group, and we work directly with business sales professionals to help them sell and earn more, help them earn an additional $50,000 to $100,000 more in commission bonus in their first year working with us. So pretty directly what we do. And what I love about what I do is I know it's not always about money, but the really cool part is when I get to work with a sales professional and help them achieve things they never thought was possible. The money is a side effect. Them becoming the best version of themselves, that are a better human being, a better mother, father, parent, whatever. And that's translated into the world of sales. And as a result, the tangible results are more money, a better life, reduced stress. And that's why I love what I do, because it's more than just helping them sell more. It's teaching them a skill that they can really repeat over and over and over again, wherever they go and anywhere they go.
I love that. So you're not creating a situation where you help them for a year and they make a lot more money, but now they still need you. You are helping them become independent. It's like you're giving them a fit, you're teaching them how to fish instead of giving them a fish. And I love that. And what something that you said reminds me of what Zig Ziglar always used to say. And I think Jim Rohn also said it. They talk about you want, like, if you want, in order to get what you want, you just need to give enough other people what they want.
That's right.
And
That's
the
right.
thing that I love is I can see the excitement that you feel for your customers. And so tell us some of the, I mean, tell us some of the stories. Give us a couple of your really win-win stories where you really helped a client and how much more they made. And tell us a little bit about the financial side. And then I have a question on the other side.
Totally. So I think a really good example is because Sam just DM'd me last week, but so Sam is a guy. He's based out of Malaysia, and he had been in sales for years, and he had been through sales training, sales coaches, been through all types of whatever, right? And he was struggling, and he's out in Malaysia. The most he's ever made was $40,000, and he thought he
In a
really
year? Is
wasn't
that in
going
a
to
year?
a year, correct?
Okay.
So he really thought he's like, I'm just not cut out for sales. Like I'm always like average at best. I can never seem to make the money I want.
Right.
So then we started working with him at the very beginning of last year, right before the recession hit. And what was interesting about him is, initially he actually couldn't afford to work with us, but he like scrounged and found a way to get the funds together, started, found a way to start working with us. Within his first week, he started booking more appointments. Within his second week, he started closing more deals. So he started already seeing progression, right? Fast forward, because we started helping him refine not just what he says, how he says it on the phone, to email, to how he runs call, to the proper mindset, to the proper routine, refine every part of his process. Within 6 months, he exceeded six figures. Okay. So this is
Ah, and it
yeah,
wasn't, it
it's
was only
all right.
halfway through the year.
Correct. Well, it was about 7 months at that point, but still at that
Okay.
point, like, 7 months in. So he continued his progress. He ended up finishing the year making $121,000. So that's like triple the money he's ever made. He's more confident. He looks even cooler, right? Because we talk about compounding skills, because people work with me. I don't want them to have one great year. I want them to have the best years of life moving forward. Right. So he DM'd me last week. This year, he's already pacing to make over $300,000 this year. So his
Wow.
life is literally transforming. But the money aside, who he is as a person, he's more confident. He's happier. When obstacles get thrown his way, which he texts me, he'll DM me like, yeah, these obstacles are coming. But I now view it so differently. So he's had a complete shift in mindset and how he approaches life, sales, whatever. And that's transforming into his sales results and the income he's generating and the impact he's making to the world.
I love that. I love that. And what's interesting is I asked you to share a financial story, and you couldn't stay away from the transformation, which shows a lot about how you care about your clients. So my next question is, it kind of is a little bit of that, but of all the clients you've worked with, is there a story or two where you're like, wow, this person really touched me because of the change I saw in them? Sounds like there was one with Sam for sure. Is there another client that comes to mind when I ask you that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot, but I would say,
Pick a
you
couple of
know,
your
I
favorites. Tell
yeah,
us
I,
two.
I would say John's definitely one of my favorites as well. So John was a really great example, right? So he definitely had income transformation, which is really, really cool, right?
Yeah.
And for him, he'd always kind of stuck in the average, and he made decent income. He's making about $80,000 a year. Nothing crazy. It wasn't that high, wasn't that low, but he was
Right.
doing decent, middle of the pack. He kind of just survived.
Yeah.
And then, within the first few months, he started working. We started working the back end. July or August last year, and he finished the year making $120,000. So he made about $40,000 more, right? Which is that was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
the cool part with the trajectory of that, more importantly, because of how he was able to generate more income and he's continued to make more income even the following year,
Yeah.
on top of actually, I'm sorry, that was 2019 because last year he ended up making 160. So he made
Oh,
40K
so
more
it's continuing to get
the first
better.
one. Yeah, he got better. But I put himself in a position where his wife was able to quit her job and start her own business. And that was a dream they've always had to have their own business, but they were never in a financial situation to feel comfortable. So when I look at sales, I look at sales as a vehicle to get to whatever goals you have in your life. And John did as well. So he saw by being able to transform the best version of him to achieve the income he wanted, he now had a way to help his wife fulfill her dream. And to me, that speaks so much to me because like that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Selling is not about just, closing deals, whatever. I mean, that's the part of it. But at the end of the day, like when you're able to serve at the highest level, that's what sales is all about. To create opportunities for yourself to make the better decisions for the freedom that you want in your life.
Okay, I love that. I love that. It makes me wonder about this as you're talking about this because your focus is sales. And every business has to have sales. But a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, as you know, try to pretend like they're not really salespeople because they somehow think that's slimy. So, I mean, the reality is we all know you've got to be good at sales. And the cool thing I love about your story with John is that no matter what they decide to do next, the fact that they're going to be amazing at sales is going to help them be
That's
successful.
right.
But so then
That's
my
right.
question for you is how do you handle that? Like, okay, how do I say this? Some people have a business where they say, oh, we're going to help you write your book. Oh, we're going to help you create your course. Well, the people are like, oh, I'm excited to create my course. But sometimes people are not always excited to be a better salesperson. So, how do you get past that? Because that really is another, it's just a doubt. It's just a limiting
Mhm.
belief. This is the most noble profession that there is. And people don't understand that. So, how do you get past that with people, or how do you get past that in your marketing? Because
Mhm.
people who are worried about that in their marketing, I don't care what they're selling, their marketing isn't as good because they're so
Mhm.
worried about sounding salesy or whatever. So tell me how do you deal with that?
I think the most important thing to understand is you must have 100% utter belief in what you offer can deliver the transformation that you are looking for. That's absolutely critical. And the way I view it, it's incredibly simple. I literally know my offer is the absolute best in the market. I know that. And when I have that complete, utter belief and confidence, I look at it very differently. I look at it as if it's a cure. And I look at potential patients or
Love that
prospects.
word. I'm going to
Yeah,
use that.
right. So those prospects and patients, I know like if they are deathly sick and I know I can help them, I literally cannot comprehend why I'm not working with them. I cannot comprehend it. Outside disqualifying, but if I know it's a good fit, if I know they have this issue, this disease, whatever, and I know my cure can solve it, there is no reason why I should not be working with them. Like, I don't think funds shouldn't matter, resources shouldn't matter because I know I could solve their problem. I know I can cure them. And that's the belief you have to have as a business owner for anything you sell, whether if it's going to be a book, you help people write a book or do a course. At the end of the day, what's the transformation that person's going to receive that you work with? Because the book is not just a book, right? Because the book could be a vehicle to create financial freedom. It could be a book to serve more people. It could be a book to get their message out there. So,
Yeah.
what's a transformation that occurs from the book? And then that's why a lot of times I see salespeople or even entrepreneurs, they fail what I call the airplane magazine test. Have you heard of the airplane magazine test?
No, tell me this.
Should I share it with you? The magazine
Yes,
airplane?
please.
Okay, all right, cool.
I want them
So it's
leaving with nuggets that they can
all
actually
right,
use.
cool. So you picture this, right? I mean, it's been a while since I've flown, right? I mean, I miss fly, I miss travel, but when you think back to last flight you were on, okay, you're sitting in the plane, and in the plane, there's always magazines in that little, little cubby, little slot.
Yeah.
You grab the magazines and you go through there, and their magazines, they are showing you these amazing places you can visit,
Right.
Hawaii, Europe, the place to eat, the experiences, the events, the dining, the happy families
Right.
inside there, they are showing you the result of what happens when you fly in their planes. They're not showing you, hey, here are the specifications of this jet that you are on right here with this many seats and this many. No, 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 no.
This is how big the
Irrelevant.
engine is, and this is how,
Right.
right.
They don't care about that. They show you, hey, what can you achieve by riding on their planes to get to where you want to go? The experience you're going to result, the transformation you're going to have. And a lot of times I find most business owners are focused on the specifications of their planes,
They
and
talk
they're
about
not
their
focused on
product.
the product. They're not focused on for the end consumer. What are they getting out of it? What's that transfer? Where's that destination going to be? What's their desires? What are they going to achieve? And when you focus on that specifically, that allows you to improve your marketing across the board. So you compile that type of marketing mindset along with the pure utter belief that you have the cure, you become an unstoppable sales machine when you start thinking this way.
I love that. That's really powerful. And so when you start working with someone, what's the first, like, and I want those of you who are listening, I want you to think about this. I'm not just asking this only for Marcus. I'm asking so that you guys will think about your business and look at the steps that Marcus takes when he answers this question. And are you doing these things in your business? So when you first start working with a client, what are the first things do? You come and teach them what they need to do? What are the steps you take when you start working with someone?
Yeah. So the first thing is I have to really understand their desires and what goals they want. That's really important first because without having an end in mind, it's very hard to get to where they want to go. Because
Right.
a lot of time when I start talking with someone, they say, "Oh yeah, I really struggle with getting enough leads, booking enough appointments, maybe closing some business, running a sales call. People ghost me, whatever." Yes, those are just symptoms to a true root issue. That's what they are, right? So it's uncovering what are those symptoms, but also what's a true root issue. But one of the first things I always do once I uncover all those things is I have to break limiting beliefs. That's the first thing I have to do. Because
I just have to
oftentimes,
let me interrupt for a second because I just have to know
yeah.
how much of the time with your client literally is spent on helping them to get past those limiting beliefs. Out of 100% of the time you spend with them, how much is really, like, maybe they don't realize, but how much time are you spending on limiting beliefs?
So here's the thing, what's really cool, right? It's actually not that much time. And the reason I say this is because I have built a system with automation that does it for me. All right.
Interesting.
From
Okay, tell
my,
us about that.
yeah. Oh yeah. So because I have literally at this point in my career, I've trained literally thousands of sales professionals. Okay. I literally have helped them break limiting beliefs. So there's a pattern. There's a pattern in how I could teach and break things down that allows me to illustrate points. So at the end of the day, I have automated that by creating a mechanism, right? So I do the coaching piece for sure, but I also have a course that's step by step. It breaks it down for them. When they do my exercises that I built out for them, it starts breaking down their beliefs, right? Breaking down the limiting beliefs and start building up the right beliefs, right?
So it
And
allows
then
you to do that with them while
correct.
you're coaching them.
Correct. Correct. Right. So that's really key. Right. And then on top of that, I do other types of marketing in which they're getting, I don't say hammered, if you will, hammered in other different ways to reprogram their brain.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I'm a little bit delusional, if you will. But,
Most
once you start,
successful
yeah,
entrepreneurs are.
yeah. Once you start working with me, you're gonna have to watch out because you might start believing yourself in a whole different way. Right. So that's what happens. People start getting into my world and they start engulfing my content, my free content, my paid content, to the coaching, to breaking it down. So they start seeing all these things, right? And sometimes it's also indirect because I do group coaching calls. So we may have someone who's still stuck on a limiting belief. So once they see me hack away and break it down on a call, and they hear it, they are doing it to themselves as well because they're seeing from someone else's perspective. So it's
Right.
incredibly powerful as a result. So I built a system that's 100% scalable and exploding results and breaking beliefs down. Right. And that's incredibly powerful. And that'll take care of like 99% of people out there that I work with. There's a 1% that requires more that specific one-on-one work where there's so many deeper to things, but sometimes here's the thing. When someone joins my program, it's I know I know my content's killer. I know my coaching's killer. I know it's going to transform their lives. But that's not what's important. The most important piece is them. They have to commit. If
Yeah.
they're unwilling to commit, then it's very unlikely they're going to have any type of transformation, whether it's mine or anybody else's, because they haven't truly committed. This is actually why my programs are actually probably some of the most expensive out there. They really are. I'm at the very, very high end for a reason, because you only those who are truly committed are the ones who are going to actually take action, show up, and allow me to break those beliefs down and build up new ones. And that's incredibly powerful. This allows me to work with the best clientele, those who get the most results. And this is why we have so many success stories, because I get to choose who I want to work with. It's
And
incredibly
these are people
powerful.
who are going to do what you teach them.
Correct. Chances are pretty good. Every now and then I'm wrong. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's true. That's true.
That person is not following through now. It is what it is, right? So, but you do your best, of course, because at the end of the day, in the industry I'm in, it's incredibly important to qualify them, to make sure you're working with the right people, because they're part of a community. If they're not, if they don't have the right mindset, they can hurt the community. And the community is also powerful, bringing people up and helping create that learning environment too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so in your marketing, do you use a lot of your testimonials? And if you do, how do you use them?
Yes, I use it nonstop. Literally, I use it all the time. And what I mean by that is, it's probably at least every other day I get a text or an email or something from, or a DM from someone
Mhm.
in my program saying, "Hey, I just achieved this. I just achieved X." Right? I use that nonstop from whether it's posting. I typically, you have to be really careful too, because when you're posting the content, if you're posting on any platform, if every day you're just posting that, it'll blend in. It'll blend
Right,
in.
right. That
It
makes
won't be
sense.
as impactful, right?
Yeah.
So I'll scatter it into my stories, right? So every other day I'll throw into my stories a screenshot of something, a
Okay.
transformation, a desired end result that I know my target market wants. So they start seeing that. Okay, that's really, really key. Now, if they are entering any of my funnels, if they're into my, one of my opt-in funnels, right? They'll enter into a sequence, and they'll see easily, I don't know, 20, 30 just there. If they watch any of my free automated trainings, they'll see probably 50 to 60 different screenshots. Proof, 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 proof,
And
proof.
is that in your PowerPoint? Is it in your, like, how do they see them? How
Oh
are
yeah, yeah. So if it's say it's one of my automated webinars or my recorded trainings, it's on a slide deck, so they get to see all the proof, right? And of
Yeah,
course, when people go to my site, they'll see I literally have dozens of videos on there.
yeah,
I have like dozens of screenshots nonstop. So it's all in there as well. I also do retargeting ads as well, from paid traffic and stuff, right? But and then from organic piece, I'll post one every couple weeks, a story just to share, right? Just so people can see the examples of what's happening and the transformation people are going through. But social proof and testimonial are the most powerful thing. Now, I do mine a little bit different. Like most of the time, I see everyone else, they type up a fancy, they type out the text the person said and their picture. I'm like, that's fine. I just do screenshots. I do screenshots. I black out their last name. I
yeah,
highlight the main section, and it's like boom, boom, boom. So that way they see it like, oh wow, it's pure, it's raw, it's not super clean, but it's intentional, because so people know it's real. And
yeah.
the more they
Doesn't
see,
make it look like you
correct,
like create.
doctored it up.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly right. Exactly. Because I want them to be able to see, hey, this is real. When there's so many, it's like, because at the end of the day, when someone's looking to work with you, they're looking to answer a couple of different questions, right? They want to know, okay, number one, does your program work? They want to know that. That social proof shows it. Okay.
right.
Number two, will it work for me? The more social proof you have, some of them will speak more to one person than the other, and they'll be like, okay, cool. So it'll
Right.
help revalidate that. And then number three, am I willing to put the work and get the desired end result? That's up to them now at that point.
Yeah.
So, if I can answer 2 out of 3, it puts them in a position to make the best decision for them if they choose to want to work with us.
I love your three, because what I hear a lot of people say is that, does it, will it work? Will it work for me? But the third one that a lot of people say is, and is it easy? But I
Yes.
like what you just said, because you didn't say that. And
No, it's
it's more
hard.
about them.
Yeah.
It's, look,
Yeah.
is this a commitment that you're willing to make and you're going to do the work?
Correct.
I
And
think that's
in my
powerful.
marketing, if they are in mid funnel, I literally tell them it's hard. I literally tell them, I'm transparent. I'm like, we do not have a 100% success rate. Here are the things that if you don't do these things, you will fail. In fact, do not work with me if you are any of these things, because
Just
I'm
leave
very
right now,
intentional.
because we're
Oh
done.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, do
Yeah.
not book a call, do not work with me, do not pass go. Just consume the free content, because that's the best for you. So
Yeah.
I'm so transparent with them, because I want them to understand, like, when they work with someone like me, they will get results, but it takes two to tango. So it requires both to show up. I know I'm going to show up 100% every single day, but they got to show up too. And only when they show up are they going to get the result they're looking for.
Love it. Love it. And probably the most powerful feeling is when somebody really does the work and they get the results. And
Yes.
it's even more exciting to see that than when you had your success.
Oh, it's interesting because, I remember early on before because, I was in corporate America for 14 years
Yeah.
and I did, as an individual seller to leading top performing teams. And I always
We're going
like,
to talk
I
about
remember.
that because I want our listeners to be able to hear some of that too.
Yeah, totally. So I love the individual selling, but leadership is why I freaking love just to be able to help people. And now that's why I love it. Because for me, that was cool. For someone to send me pictures of their new house they bought, the family vacation, them going out and donating time because they have more time on their hands because they are hyper efficient in what they do
Yeah.
is like the best feeling. It fills my cup. It fills my cup. It's better than any deal I've ever closed. It's just knowing that they are like the best version of them and they're achieving cool things. And sometimes it's like, I'm just less stressed. I'm like, amazing, amazing.
Yeah. It's so fulfilling. Okay, so I want to talk about you were in corporate America. You worked for Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
You started out not knowing, like you say, you're the worst rep. Tell me, and you got to the point where you were promoted every time for like 10 years in a row, every
Yeah.
year. So tell me, I want to hear that story and I want you to go all out. I want to hear the whole
Yeah.
story because some people aren't as familiar with that world.
Yeah.
And I have some specific questions I want to ask after the audience understands a little
Yeah.
bit about this. And I want them to get to know you a little bit too. So tell me details.
100%. So first off, before I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. Okay. And I remember, my parents were not that happy with me because they, I'm Asian. If you're watching me, I'm Asian. So they wanted me to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or engineer, something along those lines.
Yes.
And I didn't choose any of those paths. I mean, I went undeclared to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. Before I graduated, I was really fortunate though, right? Like I was really fortunate. I actually had 5 job offers on the table. All right. So I had a B2B sales job for a startup company of a major company, which is the Fortune 500 company we mentioned, right? And then we also a few other ones as well, like for other banks, analysts, etc. And the comp would vary from 29,500, that was a B2B sales role, up to 60,000. So I turned down all the other ones, went for the sales job. And my parents were like freaking out first. They're like, "What is wrong with you?" And
Haven't
and
we
and
taught you
for
anything?
yeah, exactly. Like, not only did you not become a doctor, now you get the lowest paying job. Like, this is crazy. Now, for me, I didn't perceive that as a sales job. What I perceived that was it was a startup division of a major Fortune 500 company where I had the opportunity to build something from scratch. They had zero clientele, they had zero customers. So my job was to go out there and get new customers and clients.
So
So I was
help
very
people understand because if they had zero clients, zero customers, how can they be a Fortune 500 company?
Yeah, great question. So their main business, incredibly lucrative, right? I mean, at that point, they were like a 15, maybe $18 billion a year company at the time. So
Okay.
they start a brand new division, and that was mostly like consumer based. They're selling consumers, etc. So they start opening up these other operations, B2B, selling truck rental only. So they rented cars as a rental car company, right?
Okay.
And then they opened up a division that was for renting and leasing box trucks, pickup trucks, stake beds, cargo beds, etc. But it was designed to be purely to businesses. So because on the car rental side, they were already kind of renting some of the cargo. Like, okay, this could be a huge opportunity because here now we can sign actually leases, long-term agreements, more recurring revenue, et cetera. While other ones, mostly because people rent cars, they want to go on vacation, they got in a car accident. So
Right.
they
Right.
so the cool part is there's like that stability of a big company, if you will. So they have the funds and capital because they're privately held to basically, okay, cool, we're gonna go buy all these box trucks and vehicles. Now, you're bleeding in the red now because no incoming dollars.
Right.
Go
Right.
and rent and lease them out, right? And I was one of the first few salespeople in that division, and I'm in that division in Oregon, right? So they put me out there, and I remember for me, it wasn't about selling. It was like this is an opportunity. Like this would be really cool to build something from scratch, and I get the stability of a big company. That's kind of cool, right? Now, even though it's the same company, like it became like a startup environment because there was no structure, there was no development, there's nothing. There was a manual though that corporate did write as part of the rollout for people to go out and sell with that
Right.
they obviously had never been in sales before. So I'm like, great. So here's this manual. It's like this thick. I'm like, I'm gonna go through this. I'm gonna try, right? So I remember Day one, I went to my boss and said, "Hey, boss, like, what should I do day one?" He said, "Listen, I want you to give me the manual. He's like, I want you to go out there and I want you to go and knock on doors. And I want you to see if you can close any deals or book any appointments." So he gives me his business cards because my cards weren't even ordered yet. Okay, no problem. He's like, "Just cross out my name, write your name on there when you're in there." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I'm like, "Boss, how many should I go knock on?" He's like, "Go knock on at least 30 doors." All right. I'm like, "Cool." I'm like, "Okay, that's reasonable." So I'm out there. Like I leave, like, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. I go out there. I come back after I knock on 60 doors, over 60 doors, right? I booked 0 appointments. I closed 0 deals. I was gonna freak out because I'm like, okay, if you told me 30, I wanted to overachieve
Yeah,
here. I'm like, I'm
right. You're
overachieve.
doing
Like
double. You're like, I got
I'm
this.
gonna do double. I'm sure at least close one deal off this. I didn't book a single appointment. I didn't like close a single deal. And I was like, oh man, okay, let me try again the next day. So I go back like, the next day again. I knock on over 60 doors again. Same result.
My goodness.
So now at this point, I walked in over 120 businesses. I didn't book a single appointment, didn't close a single deal. So I talked to my boss. I was like, "Hey, what should I do next? Like, I don't think this will work." He's like, "No, it's a numbers game. What I want you to do, take all those cards and I want you to call every single one." So the next 2 days, I literally call those cards over and over. I made hundreds of calls the next 2 days, booked 0 appointments, closed 0 deals. At this point is at the end of the week, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm about to fail. Like I'm literally failing because in my past life, I've been more of service-based roles, retail selling, which is pretty, people are coming in. I worked at my parents' restaurant growing up. I was used to hard work.
Yeah.
Like I was
And
out,
you were able to
in
see results from your actions.
yeah, exactly. Like even like in school, I'm like, okay, if I work really hard with class, I may not get an A every time, but I can at least get a B if I try
Right.
really hard, right? Like, so I just had to equate a hard work equals success. And I'm like, and I wasn't seeing that. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And I remember that Friday night, and I was talking to my girlfriend, now wife, but my girlfriend at the time, and I was like complaining. I'm like, oh, it's my boss is terrible. He's not training me. He's giving me a stupid manual. And the economy is starting to tank as well because of 2007.
Oh,
So I was walking some places where they're just like closed down, boarded up. And I only had 4 zip codes, right? So I was literally walking my foot so I could see them all. So I was like, okay, I'm not getting training. The economy is bad. This is like everyone's fault. And my girlfriend, much smarter and wiser than me. It's like, hey, listen, she's like, you're pretty studious. You've always read books. Like maybe you should get some sales books at the library. I'm like, that's a good idea, actually. So I went to the library that weekend. I got like 8 or 9 different books. Zig Ziglar, Og Mandino, Brian Tracy, all the most common ones, which are really relevant at the time. And, at the time, there wasn't really sales blogs or anything like that. So I started voraciously reading these things and I started trying to apply what they said. And I realized very quickly, many things they taught in there were very antiquated and old school and simply didn't work. So for the next several weeks, I just kept trying. Okay. I continued to have 0 results. I outworked everybody. In fact, I really didn't understand why there were people on my team that were able to close deals. They weren't big, but they still closed deals. They had better results than me,
yeah.
even though they worked less.
Yeah.
I could not comprehend that. So I did that for literally for weeks. Like literally got to the point where it was like 5 or 6 weeks in. And my boss says he wants to talk to me on a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock,
Oh,
which is
no.
never a good sign. He pulls me in his office and he just rips me in half. He just tears into me, right? And I had been brought in because before I had started here, I was an intern for the other division. So
Okay.
like, and I did really well. Like I did really well as an intern. I sold lights out selling their insurance to people coming in. They're like, you sold lights out selling insurance. Like, yeah, I had the best upsells. So they're like, I was almost like this like golden, golden college kid coming now who's supposed to come out and just
Right.
sell lights out.
They're like, dude,
So
you're the recruit that's letting us
yeah,
down.
you're like the recruit. You're just embarrassing now, right? I mean, he didn't say, like, but pretty much did, right? So I'm like, and basically he threatens to put me on a performance plan at that point. And I'm like, oh man. And I was really worried because at this point, it's like, okay, I hadn't been performing. I had an incredibly low base salary. I was like, if I lose my job, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get into the job somehow, hopefully.
Yeah.
But economy is bad again. Remember, at that point, I think unemployment was approaching, double digits at that point. So I'm even more worried, you know, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, and on top of that, I knew I wanted to propose to my girlfriend
Yeah.
and I knew I couldn't do that. I didn't have any money. I also knew that obviously her parents were not going to be happy about that, right? Because they're kind of like,
Like,
they're
I
very
might
well.
lose my job.
Yeah, exactly. There's all these fears going through my mind, right? So at that point, I realized I only had a couple different options. Okay, number one, I could quit.
Yeah.
Number two, I can keep trying as hard as I can until I get fired. Okay. You know, that was it. Those are my two options.
Option
Okay.
two.
I'm like, I'm just gonna go to number two, right? So I said, okay. So and at that point, you know, it's like it was interesting because as I was reading all those books, I remember around that same time I came across a different book. This is like earlier on, a couple weeks prior to that. It was Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. And
Mm.
inside that book, one of the things that really spoke to me, especially at the time, Tony said, if you don't like the answer, ask a better question.
That's good.
And I realized at that point, I had been rewiring my brain with negativity and negative questions. A bad cold call would happen, and I would be like, oh, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with blah, blah, blah? What's wrong with the economy? Versus what can I do better? How
Mm,
can I improve this? What could I say differently?
good. Good
So
stuff.
I, over the time, I've been starting to ask them better questions, right? Started asking better questions, and I remember the moment. It was about literally with a few days after this situation where I almost got, you know, got threatened to be fired, if you will.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor, and the doctor was really interesting because I went to the doctor, and at this point, I'd been out of college for, you know, probably about, you know, almost 2 months,
Yeah.
and went to the doctor. High blood pressure, which I kind of expected at that point. I'm like, high
Yeah.
blood pressure, you know,
I'm a little
like,
bit stressed
you
right
know,
now.
a little stressed, cholesterol's going up, etc. And you know, I remember I went to the doctor, and I remember the doctor, basically recommended that I basically change my diet, change what I exercise, and change how I do a lot of things. And at this point, I hadn't lived kind of college lifestyle still, like the way I ate, the way I did
Right.
everything. You kind of think if I just work out 2 hours a day, I could burn everything off, you know, and all this stuff, right? I mean, lift heavy things, it looks me great. I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And I remember like leaving, and I said, okay, she gave some really good advice. So I'm like, you know what? I'm excited. I'm gonna start doing this. It's gonna make me feel better anyway. It's gonna be good for my health. And I remember at that night, I was laying there in bed thinking to myself, I'm excited about this. And I thought to myself, I started really thinking, I'm like, how did she get me to think this way? How did she convince me to essentially change habits that I've been running and doing for the last, you know, 5, 10 years, if you will?
That you
How
enjoy.
did she do it? I'm like open to doing it. I'm like, how did she sell me in this? And then I started really thinking, I'm like, she didn't really sell me at all. She really just, she just asked me a lot of questions. I'm like, I started thinking about, it, I'm like, like she knew what I wanted to achieve, which is to be in good shape, be healthy, be, you know, less stressed. She knew that, and she asked me all these questions. I started really thinking, I'm like, when I got to there in the lobby, I felt all these questions. I answered all these questions. And then from there, I went and talked to the nurse, but the nurse just asked me more questions. A lot of questions about my situation, what's going on, how I was feeling. They took all that information, gave it to the doctor. The doctor didn't come in and say, Mark, you need to do this. She asked me even more questions, revalidating everything. And after she asked all these questions, she said, hey, here's a simple solution. And I realized that's literally a sales process. I'm like, that's literally what she did. She literally spent 89% of the whole time uncovering my needs, uncovering what I really wanted. And then she gave me a very simple solution that it just made sense.
Right.
So
And
I had the
I like
opportunity to
what
be
you
bought in.
said,
Yeah.
that you talked about how each step of the process validated the
Yeah.
previous step and
Correct.
validated the whole process.
Correct.
That's a really good
Yeah.
point.
They led me all the way down this path. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Cause I was like, on the flip side, if I just come in and didn't ask any questions, she asked like 1, 2 questions. It's like, okay, cool. You need to have a surgery or you need to take this medication. I would be resistant, but she
Right.
didn't. And I realized at a point that I had basically been doing that in my sales process. Like I was trying to do this play this numbers game, call people on the phone, jam it down their throat, get an appointment, try to jam my solution down their throat. And I realized I would ask maybe 1 or 2 questions, and I was presenting, trying to present features, trying to present the parts of the jet, if you will, and
Yeah.
not really uncovering what was their desired destination, what were their desires, their goals, their pain points, what's really on their mind, and how can my solution align to helping them achieve that. And when I started realizing that, I'm like, okay, that's how I can start really improving. So I started doing this. I started doing it, and I started seeing results. I started closing more deals, and of course, over time, I started refining, getting better. And then, within that following month, I actually became number one the following month. I thought it was a fluke, but I kept doing it. I say number one again. And then for a couple months, I thought it was a fluke. I was like, maybe it's a fluke. Kept doing it, right? And at this point, I'm 6 months in, and my boss said to me, "Hey, Marcus, you've been doing pretty good." He's really excited. Like, I was like, good thing you worked out. Okay, first off, he's like, "We want you to go to this other operation, and we want you to do this other operation, and they're underperforming, and we want you to take over the operation, and we want you to do what you just are doing now, do it over there. I'm like, oh, so I'm getting promoted? Like, you're not getting promoted. We
Oh,
want you
they're
to go
like, no,
do,
no, let's be
yeah,
clear.
yeah, yeah. They're your peers. So go over there and repeat what you did. And if you do a good job, they'll promote you. Right. And that was a really great aha for me right at that point. I'm like, well, this is how politics works, first off. Also, number two, well, this is a good opportunity for me to learn. So I went in there. There were some failures, of course, in terms of learning how to lead people, but I was able to transform the operation around, get them to perform. Our
And
operation came
obviously
number
learned
one.
how to lead
Yeah,
people better. And you
correct.
ended up on Forbes magazine. You were in
Yeah,
Forbes magazine.
yeah.
You were in finance. You were in Market Watch, NBC. Like, how did you ended up in all of these like really powerful magazine locations, online locations? So how, I mean,
Yeah.
how did you get discovered that way?
So first off, it didn't happen at that first year, just so you know. And
Still
it's
going
always funny, right? Yeah. So a lot, I always find it funny, right? Because people say, "Hey, Marcus, like, how did you, you just kind of came out of nowhere. It seemed like the last 18 months, you're winning, you're like, you're getting all this recognition on massive publications, you're winning all these awards and all this stuff." I'm like, well, a lot of people don't realize is, so I was in corporate America for 14 years, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
So in addition to just selling, I started leading massive teams. It got to a point where I could promote 10 times in 10 years. It was actually 11 times, but it sounds cooler to say 10 times in 10 years.
And
But,
I'm telling
eh,
you, but then
you know, whatever.
you were doing Salesforce. Some people
Yeah.
don't even know what that is. Tell us about that, because that's
Yeah. So
very prestigious.
yeah, so Salesforce in the sales world is massive. So Salesforce is the number one cloud platform in the world for sales. So anyone who's in sales knows what Salesforce is. They probably use their CRM at one point. Like they're like the godfather, if you will, of sales. Like when they came out in early 2000, they're one of the first software platforms as a service. They're the first ones who really just kind of changed the game for everything. So
What did
they're a
you do
massive
with
company.
them? How'd you get involved with them?
So initially with them, it was never really a goal. So what really happened was like when I started my business, I just took everything I learned over the 14 years and I put it into my business. That's all I did, right? So I was running full P&Ls. I mean, I was running a business that was doing 200 million a year in sales, okay, before I started my own business. So I
Wow.
did all those learnings, all those things I was already learning, from running a business, managing people, to training and scaling, doing all these things. I took it and applied to my business, right? And I started building my business the way I want to. And I came out and meet like it literally, I remember September 19, 2019, 9/19/19, when I quit my job and started my business, like I went all in and started doing exactly everything I've been doing, but for myself now, right? So I started doing that. And from there, it wasn't like, oh, Salesforce says, hey, Marcus, what's up? Hey, Forbes. No, nobody said anything. So I just stay focused and I started building across the board. I started putting out content. I started securing clients. I started hitting I started getting all these podcasts, right? I started doing all these things to build up my brand and start getting my name out there while getting more clients and making sure they got freaking amazing results. That was incredibly important. And then it continues to
Oh,
scale that, right? So really important. So as it continues to do that, you start getting, people start finding you and they start seeing you everywhere, right? They start seeing, like, wow, when you Google this guy, he's a first search on Google now. He's like his all his YouTube videos, he's all these podcasts he's on, he's all these things. So what starts happening is starts garnering attention. And then people start reaching out and saying, hey, listen, I'd love to feature you in this magazine, in this article. I'm like, cool. But the thing is, it didn't start while I was in my business. It really started 14 years ago. Is
yeah.
being able to take all that knowledge and put together and do that. So when Salesforce reached out to me, about a month or so ago, it was like, I felt really honored because it,
Or
it, it wasn't overnight. It was a culmination of the blood, sweat, and tears of over 14, all the time in 14 years, and doing my business that led to them to recognizing me. I took all the knowledge I acquired in that time and I was applying it to my life. On top of that, it's what's also key too. I think it's also helped me get recognized by Salesforce is when I'm out there and I'm also investing in myself.
yeah,
So as part of my business and growing my business, I didn't just say, okay, I'm going to figure it all on my own,
yeah,
because there was parts that I knew I was really good with. The marketing piece I knew I need help with. So I started investing into programs and coaches for people that can help me become better in my weaker areas. And that helped increase my brand awareness. So what happens is when people start looking you up and Googling and they start seeing you're a credible resource and start realizing you're real, then they're going to be more open to say, you know what, this person might be worth following. And then
yeah.
when they continue to follow for a while, they start realizing, you know what, actually, hey, you know what, this guy is pretty legit. He should be someone to watch out for. And it's interesting because I remember even thinking to myself, like, some of the people that reach out to me from Salesforce say, hey, listen, we want to give you a heads up. We've never done this before. We're choosing 16 people in the whole world, and you're gonna be one of them. I'm like, what? They're like, we've been following you from early on, because I remember I connected with one of
Wow.
these people
Yeah.
early on, but they got to see everything from the get-go. And the thing is anyone can be great once. Just so you know, anyone can win one award once. Anyone can have one great year, anyone one great month. To be consistent is hard to do, and that applies to all the even content you put out there. In today's world, like social selling is so vital. So the more quality content you put out there consistently, the more you can show up, the more your brand builds up, and that's incredibly important. And from a business perspective, when you understand this, now you get to leverage those platforms.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's really cool to recognize my Salesforce, but now I'm leveraging their audience, right? I'm leveraging their audience. I get to borrow their traffic, and that's going to help my business. So for every time I get featured anywhere else, I'm able to borrow traffic. So it becomes this really awesome relationship for both of us, because, they're making me look good. I get to help them out. We have other partnerships and other events. Like, for example, Salesforce, we're going to run a clubhouse room on this coming Wednesday, which will be a lot of fun, right? Because now I get these
Tell
opportunities
people
to,
where to find that. Like, what's it going to be called? Oh, I don't know if this will be posted soon enough, but how can they'll
yeah.
just find you on Clubhouse with your name?
Well, I'll say the easiest way is find me on LinkedIn, because I usually will
Okay.
post. So, hey, because the clubhouse things are usually like, hey, it's gonna be happening 2 days from now, because
Yeah. Right.
there's no real planning for those type of things. So, but if you're on there, I'll usually announce them on those platforms too.
Okay, cool. And I have a question for you. Well, this will be our final question. And then I want you to leave with that. Like, I'll have you end with, after this question, I'll have you end with something that you're like, dude, you guys, this is the most important thing I can leave you with. Okay. But the question I have for you is, when you start getting noticed, you said you would borrow their traffic. Can you
Yes.
tell us exactly what you did? Let's say you got in Forbes. How did you maximize that borrowed traffic? Did you send emails? Did you have a course that you made available? What did you do?
Yeah, so really great question, right? So being able to leverage someone else's credibility was one of the most powerful things you can do. So once you are associated with a brand like Forbes or whomever, sales or whatever, or anybody in your specific industry or niche, you have an asset that you must leverage. Okay. So for example, even the Forbes one, the Forbes is very simple. So for example, automatically I went update all my banners. Okay, banners to my
Nice.
website, banners to whatever. That's kind of the obvious stuff, right? But
Yeah.
on top of that, what are the marketing materials that you utilize as part of your sales process? All that should incorporate that type of stuff as well. Okay. On top of that, here's a super ninja move. So what I do as well is the first article came out, or even basically every Forbes article that comes out about that I'm in there, I'll take it, I'll put it onto my Facebook page, and then I'll actually boost it and create an ad for it. And I'll start targeting that ad towards specific people in the marketplace. People that have visited any of my websites, people that follow Forbes, people that follow certain interests are most likely to be my target audience. So they start seeing me all over their eye, and it chases them around. Okay. Now
Yeah.
it's not a buy something from me ad. It's an awareness ad. It's an awareness campaign.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
that
Not asking for
so it's very
anything.
targeted. Yeah. So I do the same thing for everything. When Salesforce came out, that thing, boom, no problem, targeted ad. Right.
So
Boom.
you
So
don't
what
even have
happens?
anything to offer them. You just have the targeted ad, and then that makes them come find you.
Well, so what happens is it's very, very strategic, intentional, right? Because you can do with cold traffic. So people that don't know you, they see it. Oh, okay, that's pretty neat, right? But what happens is because I'm also putting that ad in front of people that have visited some of my sites. At one point, they had went to one of my sites in the last 180 days, and I know. So now the ad's shown in front of them. So they're seeing me everywhere. So what happens is I become omnipresent. It's kind of like when you go on a website to look at maybe say shoes, and suddenly you see the ads everywhere. Okay, it's in your
Yeah.
Google feed, it's in your Facebook feed, it's in
Yeah.
everywhere, right? I
Okay.
do the same thing with my brand. So when someone Googles me or goes to my site, suddenly they start seeing me everywhere. They start seeing me like in their dreams, in their nightmares, in their email, in their posts, in their feed, right? So you become omnipresent, if you will,
Yeah.
and for some people, they require a certain amount of time before they're like, oh, cool, now I'm ready to have a conversation. Now I'm ready, right? Or
Yeah.
because sometimes it's even if they're not necessarily the target market, they just happen to like that type of stuff. Now they know more about you. And in today's world, attention is the greatest currency you can have.
Oh yeah.
So the more attention you can garner towards you and your brand, good or bad, can help your business. And at the end of the day, I know for me, the most important thing is for me is to make an impact on my clients and future clients. So the more attention I can garner, the more people I can serve and help at a greater level.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so thank you for all of that, and thank you for your time. This has seriously been fun. It's been fun to get to know you a little bit better. I'm excited for my audience to get to know you a little bit. We're going to make sure that we put some links. Let us know where can they find you. And I know you have a hard stop, so you've got to go. But tell us where they can find you. We'll also put it in the links, and then end with your nuggets of a nugget of wisdom, something that you would leave them with.
Awesome. So easy to find me. Find me on LinkedIn, Marcus Chance, the only guy with Speedos in the tagline. Should be really easy to find. And then you got it.
MARCUSCHAN. Okay.
You nailed it. That's exactly right. And then if you head to sixfiguresalesacademy.com, I own both domains. So even if you type in the six, it'll go to the same place.
Oh,
you got free trainings, resources. Oh yeah. Yeah. When you have numbers, you got to think that way. So you head over there. So a bunch of free trainings there. And my last nugget, for anybody out there, right? Whatever you want to do in life, okay, whether you want to create great impact or whatever, I would say it's a Jim Rohn quote, right? Like work harder on yourself than on your job, right? Because when you work hard at your job, you make a living. When you work hard on yourself, you make a fortune. And when you work hard on yourself, you are able to serve at a greater level to yourself, to your family, and to everybody else. So if you want to make a great impact on the world, focus on being the best version of you, and everything else is going to be a side effect of that.
Love it. Love it. Good stuff. Good stuff. Marcus, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I know you've got to get out of here, so we'll let you go. But you guys, give him some shout outs in the comments. Let him know what you loved, and go check him out. Click on the links, go find Marcus and see what he can do for your business. You guys are awesome.
Thanks so much.
All right. Bye, Marcus.
Cool. That was fun. See ya.
Thank you. Bye, Marcus.
Bye.
Okay.